Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melissa Lieberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here because today we're going to dive into goal setting. I love working on goal setting really for the whole month of December, usually setting goals and letting them percolate and refine them and, remember things that might have slipped my mind and just really let them kind of marinate. And so that they feel really well baked when we start the new year. And so that's part of the process that I want to share with you today. Today, specifically, we're on part 2 of this 5-part series that I'm walking you through as a way for you to plan for independent business success in 2023. And specifically, last week, we talked about how to assess the last 12 months in your business to get a really good foundation, a really good understanding of what went well that you want to repeat, what went so great you might want to amplify it, and what might have not gone as well that you want to adjust or even completely remove from your business. So that's what we did last week. So you can go back and listen to that episode after this one, but no need to leave now. You can listen to today's episode about setting your goals, your big goals. And I'm going to walk you through a framework to set your goals. Don't worry, this isn't me just telling you how to set a SMART goal. You can Google that. It's pretty basic, right? I want to talk with you about specifically setting goals for your business and for you as an owner, and some things you want to be thinking about as you're setting goals specifically for an independent consulting business. So that's why we're here talking about you and your business and making sure you're set up for success to have the best year next year that you've ever had. I can't wait for this. So if you're listening to this in the real time, we're setting ourselves up for success in 2023. If you're listening to this at some point in the future, it doesn't matter that it might not be December or January. Just listen to this episode and think about it from the last 12 months, a rolling 12-month framework. And that's going to set you up for success. Certainly don't wait until the new year comes around to put this type of process in place for your business. Definitely don't do that. So with that being said, today, like I said, we're going to focus on step 2, which is setting your big goals. So before we dive into today's specific topic, I did want to share with you a couple of resources that go along as companions to this episode. And 2 things. Number 1, I have a workbook for you. So it is the yearly planning process for independent consultants. And you can go find that at melissalieberman.com/plan. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. And the other thing that I want to offer to you is a goal review session. So it's a 20-minute call. We just jump on Zoom together. You tell me what your goals are, where you might be feeling stuck or unsure, and then we just work it together. So it's a really fun 20-minute call. I've been doing them already for people who listened to last week's episode and went ahead and booked one. And we've been solving so many problems for their business and setting them up for success for next year. So I would highly recommend you go grab one of those calls. They're no charge. They're 20 minutes. We'll get in, we'll meet each other. We'll really dive into your business and figure out how to best set you up for success for next year and overcome, where you might be getting stuck. So you can go grab one of those spots at IC. So the letters IC, like independent consultant, icgoals.review. That is a special URL that I bought just for this purpose. So I cannot wait to see you on my calendar. Again, icgoals.review. Okay, so with that, those are the two companion resources I wanted to share with you to go along with this episode to make sure you make the most of it. And with that, now let's dive into today's agenda. Today, we're going to focus on, I'm going to talk with you about setting what I call your 360-degree independent consulting goal. Then we're going to talk about the ways you might want to think about setting goals as a business owner. Then I'm going to give you a great way to check your goal. Double check that it's directionally correct for you, that is. And then we're going to dive into my favorite part of this. Actually, all of this is my favorite. I love it so much. This is one of my favorite topics, is goal setting. But we're going to dive into the 5 goal saboteurs and what you can do about them. So I want to not only help you set up the goals, but I also wanted you to know, what are these saboteurs that happen so frequently for us as independent consultants? You could probably relate to one of them, maybe more than one, but at least one, and help you to see what are the tools to overcome that common goal saboteur that might be just kind of plaguing you for the last several years, or if not longer. And then we'll wrap up today's episode to help you put this work into action. So with that, let's start off with, again, what is this idea of the 360-degree independent consulting business owner goal? That's what we want to look at. We're here to help you reach your goals as a business owner, and that involves you being a human being as well. You're not just a business owner. This isn't just a business. You're not in corporate where you're trying to hit numbers for shareholders or for the ownership or the private equity firm that just bought you. None of that. You're here as an independent consultant because you want to do work that's fulfilling. You want to have control over your own schedule. You want to make as much money as you want to make. And so we want to look at this as we set our goals as an independent consultant, which is very different than setting goals in corporate, or quite frankly, it's also a little bit different than setting personal goals. This is a holistic viewpoint of you setting your goals. And so that's why I like to call it the 360-degree independent goal setting process here, the goal itself. And so there's several components to the goal that you'll want to be thinking about as you design it for yourself. What is my financial goal? Asking yourself that. What amount of money do I want to make this year? And that looks like, what amount of revenue do I want to create? What is my actual income from that revenue? So that you've got that space to invest in your business and to pay for operating costs and taxes and those kinds of things. So that's the first component of this 360-degree goal, is the financial side of it. And a lot of times we just think that that's it. We just need to set a financial goal and keep going. But that's not it. You want to be looking at this in a 360-degree way. And from that means that you also want to be thinking about, what's your schedule? What is the schedule that you want to keep as an independent consultant? How much do you want to be working? I talk to so many independent consultants who are so nervous about leaving money on the table that you're constantly saying yes to whatever work is coming your way. And then the schedule is always the thing that suffers. So really putting some boundaries for yourself and a container for yourself around what it is that you want to make, to say, I really want to create a business this year that generates X amount of income and I'm working Y amount of time. I'll give you a few examples of what a 360-degree goal sounds like here in a minute. Okay, and then the other components are more intangible. There are things like, how am I going to feel fulfilled this year? How am I going to feel valued this year? What does that look like? How am I making an impact is another example. So think about, as you're looking at this 360-degree version of your goals, the financial side of it, the schedule side of it, the fulfillment and impact side of it. And then you might have another quadrant for yourself that says, you know what, I want to have some other thing that's really important to me. Like I want to be running this business and hit these financial goals, working this amount of time, feeling fulfilled because of X, Y, and Z, and also doing so without sacrificing my health, could be an example. So think about, as you're building out your goals for this coming year, what do they look like really holistically? And so that's why I call them the 360 degrees, because we're going full circle. So think about it from those different dimensions as you're really building out your goal statement. And as you're building out the goal statement, think about it from the perspective of, if anything is possible, what do I want to achieve? If anything I possibly imagined was possible, what is it that I want? So often we limit ourselves at the very start of setting out to reach, the next milestone based on what we feel is realistic or practical. And so you just make this incremental progress each year over year, these small steps forward, when you could be setting yourself up to take big leaps forward. I'm not just talking about the financial side of this. You might choose this year to say, you know what, if anything is possible, I want to generate the same amount of money that I generated last year, working half of the time. Or I want to generate the same amount of money, working around the same amount of time, but I want to set a goal that I'm feeling fulfilled 80% of the time, when I think maybe last year it was 20%. Or it might be that you want to set that next big financial goal. I want to hit $1 million in revenue this year. If anything is possible for you, what is it that you want to achieve? Ask yourself that question from that vantage point versus what's practical. I'm going to write that down. And ask yourself, why do I want this? When I think about the different aspects of the goal that I'm setting, why do I want these things? Is it because someone told me I should want them? Or is it truly because I want them? I want to grow into the business owner who's achieved this. So ask yourself those questions as you're thinking about the different dimensions of your goal. Now, let me give you a couple of examples, or an example to bring this to life. One way that you might create your goal statement, your 360-degree goal statement, is to say, in 2023, I will make $750K working 30 hours a week, 3 weeks a month, and 10 months of the year. And I will feel fulfilled with the work I'm doing 80% of the time. So you can see how that's so measurable, and it takes into account all of the different aspects of life, the financial side, the schedule side, the feeling of fulfillment and impact. And you might add another part to the goal statement to accomplish some other goal that's important to you. Like, I'm going to schedule around all of my kids' events, making that $750K. I'm going to take 5 vacations, or I'm going to work from Italy for a quarter, or I'm going to, ensure that I'm working out 7 days a week or 6 days a week to feel, and we're eating healthfully 80% of the time, whatever that looks like for you. So creating a goal statement is where we're starting here, a 360-degree goal statement, knowing that you're not here just in a silo anymore, working in corporate and having your corporate goals and then having some personal goals. These don't have to be separate. You can infuse them all together to create something that's holistic, that really works together and sets you up for success for the next 12 months. Okay, so that's the perspective that I like to set on actually setting the goal or creating that goal statement itself. And I'll remind you to go download the workbook that I shared with you that's a companion to this podcast. It's at melissalieberman.com/plan so that you can put this work into action. Okay, then the next thing that I love to do is have a checkpoint. a level set, like a way to test whether or not my goal feels headed in the right direction. And that's by answering the question, how does the goal that I just set, that goal statement, how does it make me feel? So for you, when you put your goal statement out there, maybe it's something like, I'm going to make 400K in 2023, working 25 hours a week and taking 2 months off in the year. And I'm going to feel fulfilled with the work that I'm doing 75% of the time. And I'm also going to get into a routine where I work out 80% of the time. Something like that. That might be your goal. When you say that out loud to yourself, whatever your goal statement is, ask yourself the question as a checkpoint, as a way to test the goal. How does it make you feel? If you say that goal to yourself and it makes you feel a little bit nauseous, you're on the right track. If you feel kind of like blah about it, then I would suggest go back and refine it. Create something that makes you slightly nauseous but excited to go pursue it because of the person that you need to become, that you need to evolve into in order to make that goal become reality. How does the goal make you feel? Is it like a combination of excitement and nausea? Like I said, that to me is right on target. If it's kind of mundane and, yeah, I think this is directionally the way I want to go, then go back to the drawing board and keep working on it until you feel that sense of excitement, that it's really pushing you out of your comfort zone. Okay, so now that we've talked about the methods by which you can create that 360-degree goal statement and how to check it to see if you're, on the right track for what you want to achieve. Now let's dive into these 5 goal saboteurs that I told you I would tell you about. So the way I like to break it down, having worked with so many independent consultants to achieve their goals, whatever those goals are, for their business and for themselves, what I see happening over and over again is one of these 5 saboteurs that people tend to gravitate toward. And so I want you to be aware of these and really think about which one applies to you the most. There may be 1 or 2, and then put a plan in place to avoid these falling victim to these saboteurs. Don't let these stop your dreams from becoming a reality this year. Okay, so the first of the goal saboteurs is what I call goal avoidance. What is goal avoidance? It's essentially you justifying your desire to skip this process of setting goals. So here's what it sounds like. I don't have control over reaching my goals, so I don't really set those, or I just kind of set it at a high level. Or it also sounds like I'm not someone who sets goals. Creates too much pressure, backfires on me. These are goal avoidance. The real reason isn't that you're not someone who sets goals or that you don't have control over reaching your goals or that it even has to backfire on you by creating some pressure. The real reason I find that people avoid goals, I used to be one of them, is because we have a fear of being disappointed. We don't want to feel disappointed or that we've somehow not met the bar, that somehow we didn't get an A on the test. We actually only got a C. And so that fear of being disappointed in ourselves, that perfectionism sets in, and we get really creative about justifying why setting goals isn't that important. And what ends up happening is we fail ahead of time because we don't even set a target to go hit. I love to say, go set $1 million goal, depending on where you're at in the trajectory of your business. Go set $1 million goal. What if you only get to 50% of the goal? That's $500K instead of setting a quote unquote realistic goal of 300,000. Even if you've only hit 50% of your $1 million goal, it's still $200,000 more than setting a quote unquote realistic goal of 300K. So wherever you're at in your business, you might not be yet ready to set $1 million goal, but think about it for you and what is a stretch. Don't fail ahead of time by not setting a goal, avoiding this process because you're worried about being disappointed. Guess what? You're running a business. I guarantee you're going to be disappointed about something throughout the year. Probably more than once a week, right? We're disappointed that maybe a contract didn't go through. We're disappointed they didn't pick the big option that we proposed to them. They picked the smallest option that we proposed to them. We're disappointed that a referral didn't happen that we expect. I mean, we could list off all of the things that create disappointment. If your goal as a business owner is to avoid disappointment, you're in the wrong place. One of your goals should be that I'm going to become the person who learns to embrace disappointment and not let it stop me. Okay, I'm off on a little tangent here. Back to the point. Goal avoidance. The reason why you're avoiding goals is because you are afraid of being disappointed. You're afraid of not being perfect. What for you resonates here? These are the root cause reasons, not because you're not someone who sets goals or you don't have control over reaching your goals, so why bother? And so knowing this, the tools to conquer this goal avoidance and not let it stop you are a couple of them. Number one, ask and answer for yourself, what do I have control over? What do I have control over? Whenever we get those kinds of answers going in our brain, which happens all the time, I don't have control over reaching my goals, or I'm not someone who sets my goals, flip that around. What do I have control over? How could I become someone who sets goals as a business owner? Flip the question around. When you hear that justifying going on in your mind, flip it around to answer the question that is so much more powerful for you to get the answer to. The second tool that I love to use when you're in the zone of goal avoidance is to set what I call process goals. So instead of saying to yourself, I have a goal of generating 500K in income, for example, you might instead say to yourself, I'm going to set a process goal that I'm going to talk to 20 potential clients every month. And you know, because you've reversed engineered it, that those 20 conversations will easily get you to a 500K goal, for example. Or you've at least created a hypothesis that you think that those 20 conversations will get you where you need to be. And you go about tackling a process goal to see if it gets you to the expected outcome. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, then you adjust as you go through the quarters. Okay. So that's the first goal saboteur and how to overcome it. Goal avoidance. The second goal saboteur is what I call goal posing. So what is goal posing? This is you posing that you have a goal and you don't really have a goal. You put the goal on the piece of paper, but it's more to go through the motions or to kind of check the box. Like you set a goal for the sake of setting a goal, but you're not actually committed to achieving it. This is what I'm calling goal posing. You're a poser. I'm calling you out for that. You've done nothing wrong. We're just like saying it how it is and then get you to the point where you're overcoming this. I used to do all of these, so that's how I know this. I also see so many clients doing these things in different ways. And so that's why I'm bringing this to your attention today, right? So let's have a little fun with this. Goal posing. You set a goal for the sake of setting a goal because you heard that on the podcast or you know from life that you should set a goal, but you're actually not committed to it. This happens for a lot of independent consultants. You go through the motions. What it sounds like is, well, I hope that fill in the blank, or we'll see, fill in the blank. And by fill in the blank, I mean, whatever your goal is, right? Well, I hope this happens, or we'll see if this happens. That is posing. That is you setting a goal, but not really being committed to it. that, you know what, I am going to become the version of myself as a business owner who has achieved this goal, and make it inevitable for yourself. Again, why would you do this? Why would you sabotage yourself? You're protecting yourself. You're making yourself feel good that you set the goal, and then you're protecting yourself from feeling disappointment or regret or like you're a failure. Of course, you're a human. That's so common that you would do that. But the key here, as someone who wants to be a successful, fulfilled, in control business owner, is that you notice that you're doing that and overcome that goal posing. So, what are the tools to overcome or conquer the goal posing if you're in this particular saboteur? They are, number one, notice that you're doing this. Notice where you're checking the boxes and just doing things to do them. It's fairly common for me to call out my clients, my independent consulting business owner clients that I coach. It's fairly common for me to call them out and say, you know what? Where are you checking the boxes versus truly committed to getting the outcome that you're looking for? Whether it's on a big scale, like your annual goals, or just on a weekly scale of potentially having conversations and wanting those to turn into leads. Where are you checking the boxes versus actually committing to getting the result that you're looking for? Another tool that you can leverage in this goal posing to overcome this goal posing saboteur is to ask yourself, I love to ask this daily. I call it one of the daily questions. How committed am I to achieving blank, fill in the blank, whatever your goal is? How committed am I to achieving whatever the goal is? Why is it that number? So on a scale of 1 to 10. And I guarantee the number is almost different every single day. Some days it's a 9. I'm so committed to achieving this goal. Why? Why is it a 9 today? The next day, you might be down to a 3. That's not a problem. Our goal here isn't to get you to a 10 every single day. The goal is to say, how committed am I today? What is that number? And why is it that number? So I know where I might be shaky on my commitment to the goal, for example. And then what would make it a 10? That's where you get so much insight for yourself about what do I need to be thinking in order to make it a 10, that I will achieve this goal. What do I need to be doing in order to make it a 10, that I will make achieving this goal inevitable? So that's another great tool for you to implement if you're in the zone of what I call goal posing, where you've set a goal, but you're really not committed to it. You're making it look really good, but under the covers, you know that you're not committed to it. And that's what you want to make sure you don't fall into that trap. Okay, number 3, the goal saboteur number 3 is what I call goal fixing. What is goal fixing? This is where you set your goal as a slam dunk, kind of like you fix the game for yourself, right? If we were using gambling terminology here, you fix the game, so it's a slam dunk. Why would you do this? If this is you do it because you want to play it safe and you want to make sure that you don't feel disappointed, right? So what it sounds like is you look at your goals and you notice that you're repeating the same results that you've had previously, in all of the 360-degree view of it. You may get to the point where it is not goal fixing if you've said to yourself, you know what, I want to repeat the same revenue and income that I did last year, but I want to do it working half as much. That's not goal fixing. What goal fixing is let's say you made 300K last year and saying to yourself, well, there's going to be a recession maybe, and I think last year might have been a little bit of a fluke, so I'm going to go for 320K this year. That's goal fixing. Playing it safe, repeating the same results you've had previously, justifying it with things that might sound logical, like what I just said about, the economy, for example. when in fact, those are really excuses to let you off the hook. So why you might be doing this, again, is for similar reasons. You don't want to be disappointed. You have a fear of failure, and you don't recognize the value or opportunity for you to grow as a business owner to say, I'm committed to making the same amount that I made last year, but I'm going to challenge myself to become the business owner who does it in 75% of the time that I spent last year. So 25 less percent of the time. And where I feel fulfilled 80% of the time as compared to last year when it was 20%. Think about the growth that for you as a business owner and as a human would be setting yourself up for if you set your goal that way. So I challenge you to avoid goal fixing. Again, you don't have to be racing toward some scaled business. You don't have to be racing toward $1 million or $2 million business. But what you can be doing is saying to yourself, I want to achieve this holistic set of goals for my business. And that involves the financial side of it, the schedule side of it, the impact side of it, and how you want to be, living as a human, living as a parent, living as a spouse, living as a friend, living as a daughter or a son, whatever it is for you, your relationships that are so important. So really thinking about this from a 360-degree perspective and figuring out where you want to challenge yourself. In which dimensions do you want to challenge yourself, and not just setting yourself up to fix the results and make it a slam dunk. So one of the tools that I would love to share with you, if you fall into this bucket of goal fixing, is something that's called good, better, best. So a lot of times with goal fixing or setting ourselves up for a slam dunk, we just really want to achieve the goal. And we're so focused on making it so doable that then we lose sight of those other things that I was just talking about, right? So one way you could do this is, if this is you, you might be in this perfectionism trap that so many of us fall into. And so one way to overcome this is to set up your goals in a way that are ranges. So you could say to yourself, one tool that you can use here is to set up a range is good, better, best. So you would set your targets in those 3 buckets. So you might have my good revenue number, which could be what you made last year plus 10 or 20%. My better number, now we're looking at a stretch. And then my best number, which is there's probably a 5 or 10% chance that I'm going to hit this. But it's that stretch way out there for you that if you hit it over the moon, that this happened, that you made this happen. So you can look at and set these good, better, best ranges for everything, right? For income, for schedule, for fulfillment, some measurement of fulfillment. Like I shared with you, ask yourself every day, how fulfilled was I yesterday? And then use that as a metric. So using this good, better, best method can be a really great way to overcome the goal fixing saboteur, especially if you're someone who's doing that because you've got a lot of perfectionism going on. Okay. Goal blocker or goal saboteur number 4 is what I call goal shame. What is this? This is you feeling embarrassed or worried that your goals are too big. You're feeling embarrassed or worried about what other people will think, or even what you're going to think about yourself because your goals are too big. Or you think your goals are too big, or you think other people will think your goals are too big. What does this sound like? This sounds like, who am I to fill in the blank of whatever the goal is? Or whatever the goal is too much. Or whatever the goal is too greedy. Or what will fill in the blank person think about me if I set this goal? Which is really irrational in so many ways, because most of the time, the person we're worried about what they're going to think about the goal, we don't even ever tell them what the goal is. So it doesn't even matter. But it's so common to limit yourself by worrying about this. And that's why it's goal shaming. goal shame that you're doing to yourself. You're doing this because you're worried about what others might think of you, what you might think of yourself for wanting whatever it is that you want. So if you fall into this bucket, the tools to conquer the goal shame are, number one, notice what's driving your decisions. Notice what's driving your goal setting. Is it a fear of judgment, self-judgment, or judgment of other people, or both? And therefore you really just winnow down what it is, narrow down, minimize it, versus really going after what you really want. Notice also that you could be wrong. I love this. Here's a good one I'll share with you. When I first started my business, I was so worried to tell anyone about it. I thought to myself, well, people are just going to think that I'm washed up, that I burned out of corporate and I couldn't succeed. I hit a ceiling. I could never go up the ladder any further. And so, I'm not going to set a goal to have this business, this really visible business, because that's what I think people are going to think about me. It limited me for a long time, and you might be in a similar boat. Notice that you could be wrong. I was wrong. The people that I thought would think those things about me, I ended up having conversations with them about it years later, which is way too long to be worrying about this or limiting myself off of these fears of judgment. The people I thought were thinking that about me, that wasn't even anywhere in their headspace. Now, there could have been other people thinking that about me. I have no idea. But the people that I was truly worried about, it was the furthest thing from their mind when I started talking with them about this. So for you, notice you could be wrong about what these fears are that other people are thinking about you. Usually it's a mirror, right? Usually we're worried about people thinking something about ourselves and we put it on someone else, but it's really what we're thinking about ourselves. So really notice this for yourself. What is going on for you that might be creating this goal shame? And then decide if you want that fear of what others think, or that fear of what you're thinking about yourself, or those judgments about yourself, to keep you from pursuing what you really want and what you're really capable of. Don't let this goal shame hold you back from going after what it is that you want. If you ultimately want a $1 million business, a $2 million business, I was talking to someone the other day, her goal is to get to a $27 million business in the next 5 years. Go after it. Make it happen. Figure it out. And if $27 million is too much, then give a lot of it away. Don't limit yourself in the beginning because you think it's too much and not have it. So this is really important to notice where you might be limiting yourself because you're worried about what other people are thinking or what you're thinking about yourself with the relation to setting big goals. Okay, the last goal blocker, the last goal saboteur that we want to avoid is what I call goal neglect. So you set the goal, you're committed to the goal, or you say you're committed to the goal, you're not posing. You've overcome the shame of setting something that's too big, or, that you might have initially have thought was too big. And then this happens so often for independent consultants, really, and most of us as humans, we forget about the goal. Life gets going in the way. We hit the middle of January and we just get back into our old patterns. This is what's goal neglect, setting goals and ignoring your relationship with them. That's an important keyword. I'll come back to that here in a second. And ultimately, this becomes amnesia. Like middle of the year, I might ask you, what's your goal? And you can't even answer me. Complete amnesia about the goal. Complete amnesia. Don't even remember what I said it to be. I've done this before too. Don't even remember. So this is really important. What it sounds like is Nothing, right? Nothing. You're completely ignoring the goals. You probably wrote them down and you put the piece of paper in your drawer, never to look at it again, or it's in some fancy doc online and you literally maybe looked at it a couple times and that was it. And quite frankly, you probably don't want to look at it. Compare the goal to actuals, for example, along the way, because you're worried you might be behind. You don't want to feel bad. Everything we do or don't do is really because we want to experience an emotion or we want to avoid emotion. In this case, I don't want to feel bad that I might not be tracking against the goals. I just don't even want to look. Whatever's under the rug, I'm not going to lift it up to see what's under there. That's what it looks like. So if you're in this zone, which most of us are not taught to really truly build a relationship with our goals. If you're in this zone, the tools to conquer the goal neglect are to develop a relationship with your goals. There's a book called The One Thing. I love this book. They talk a lot about developing a relationship with your goals. In this case, what they're talking about in the book is developing a relationship with really kind of one thing that you're focused in on. But in this case, we're talking about developing a relationship with your goals, to truly be committed to them, to nurture them, to feel connected to them. It's almost like you were dating again, being excited to see them, getting to know them better. Those are all the things when I say developing a relationship with your goals. Those are the tools to overcome it. Those are the ways to develop a relationship with the goals. A very tangible way to develop a relationship with your goals to avoid the goal neglect is to rewrite them every single day. Now, that might sound like overkill. When someone first told me about writing my goals every day, I thought, that's crazy. I don't have time for that. That's overkill. I have so many other things to do. But you know what? When you rewrite your goal every day, which is what I do, and I teach clients to do this in a 90-day planner that I give them. When you rewrite your goals every day, you're creating and deepening and creating connection and relationship with those goals. You don't forget. You don't have amnesia. When I ask you what your goal is, you remember because you wrote it down earlier that day. So really focus in on, once you've set the goals, developing that relationship with the goals. Think of them as a person that you love. The person isn't perfect. Think about it, the goals as maybe one of your kids or your grandmother. They're not perfect, but you love them and you believe in them. And you love being connected with them and talking with them and just being curious about them. That is the relationship with those goals and the way that you overcome the goal neglect. It's really purposefully thinking about them and taking action against them and creating that feeling of connectedness to them, not avoidance, not wanting to not look at them, right? So that's how you overcome the goal saboteur number 5, which is goal neglect. So just to recap here for us today, we talked about you setting a 360-degree goal statement that really incorporates all of the aspects of you as a business owner and your business. And then we making a checkpoint against that by checking in with how you feel about that goal statement. If it feels a little bit nauseous and excited, that's great. That's on track. And then we went through these saboteurs, these goal blockers, and we walked through those 5 most common saboteurs and how you know if you're falling into that saboteur trap and how to overcome it. So that's what you want to go put into action for your business as this step 2 of setting yourself up for business success in the coming year. Be sure to go grab that workbook at melissalieberman.com/plan so you can really be building all of this out. And then also go schedule your goal review call with me at icgoals.review. And I will see you again next week for the 3rd part of our process to set yourself up for your best year next year. And that's where we're going to start breaking down the goals that you set today and through this episode into a really specific action plan. All right. So I will see you then. Have a great week. Take care.
Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissalieberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.